We are about to go pick up Mark. My boys are playing Ninja, which I don't know if you can hear them. It's a loud game. That's why this channel is called Momming. That's why this channel is called Momming with PTSD, because it's all joined together. So right now I'm just, while they're playing out there, I'm being really loud. I'm just sitting on my bed getting my group stuff set up because it's loud. I don't want to stop them playing, but I also don't want to like, I just needed a break from all the loud, so. Group next. Such a pretty sunset. We're picking up Daddy. How pretty that is. So pretty. So it's intermission, and how it works is only like the newbies come back after intermission, and it's more like education. So I'm gonna finish group hopefully soon, and it was one girl's last time, which was awesome. She finished the program, and hopefully we finish soon so I can go to bed, but I already see that they are starting back up, so see you tomorrow. Here, Frank. That's how much he screams when he's in his crate. I wouldn't have put him back, but I didn't realize it was almost 6 o'clock. Good morning. Oh, you hear the rain starting again?
No.
I thought it was 1 o'clock. It's really
tooted.
6.
He tooted.
He tooted. And, oh, I know. See, this is what happens, like, right when he gets out of his crate. He's like, love me. It's pouring here because of the hurricane that we're getting down south. So we're getting some of the rain. So we're up early. I literally thought it was 1 o'clock in the morning when it was almost, no, it was like 5:45.
Yeah.
Even Nate got up and I was like, get back in bed, it's 1. No, it wasn't. So today I just have preschool, and it's a day with no therapy, which is awesome. So I'm just gonna be working on my life story while the kids are at school. Hopefully the rain calms down. Some crazy rain going on today.
Oh man, the other day he came in the I think it's gonna be the bear. Okay, the mouse thinks it's the bear. First, he has her whole tail. That's the piggy. Well, what do you know? My tiny scale may go. That means I weigh more than...
And preschool's canceled. The rain canceled preschool, so we are just gonna hang out at home today. This will be my last check-in, and I'm just gonna try to work. Yeah, we're not going to school today, and I'm just gonna. It's raining too hard. There's too much rain outside.
How many minutes is the time to not rain? I like to go to school.
On Tuesday, so in a couple days. He's starting to really like school, which is awesome. So this will be my last check-in until I get some writing done, and then the next time you see me, I will share some of my life story. The computer is putting like this weird lighting on me. But I wanted to show you that I am actually doing my stuff. Boom. I'm getting group set up. And you're probably thinking, girl, you have like a paragraph written and it's Friday. Like the last time I talked to you was Wednesday. No, Thursday. So the last time I talked to you was yesterday, and I have a good 6 sentences. I told you this was hard. So I'm gonna work on it a little bit more, because when you're supposed to work on it right before therapy. I mean, that sounds smart to me. Work on something that's hard and then talk about it in therapy. But this is going to be my life for a while. So hopefully next time I talk to you, I will actually have half of my story done, and this video of procrastination will be over. I decided to show everybody the progress I've made. Boom. That is about half of a life story written. Maybe a little bit more. So I'll be able to share that with you guys a little bit later, and then this video can wrap up, and the next video I will not post so much procrastination parts, and I will just make it about the second half, and yeah, and give you more updates on all the good group and individual therapy stuff and what I'm learning, because I'm learning so much too. That's what's so great about this program, is I'm actually like learning stuff instead of just like talking for an hour and then they're like, okay, give me some money, bye. So TBC. Okay, I think I'm finally ready to read my first half to you. So here we go. Some of it's going to be a little bit repetitive because of a part where I shared about my childhood from my last video, but other than that, let's see how it goes. It says, I was born in 1987 to Barb Visbecki Pavia and Michael King. I was the third of 4 children, and there was another woman living with my mom and siblings named Sue Kreitzer, who also had the oldest child in the home, a son named Jonathan. She worked, provided for the family, and my mom stayed home with the children. My childhood was a mixture of normal and hell. My father, Michael King, who if I had to liken him to someone in popular culture, I'd liken him to Charles Manson. He was a cult leader with only a small following that I'm aware of, and had women do his dirty work or really whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted them to. My mother and Sue were completely under his spell, completely brainwashed by his false doctrine, and they fully believed that God had made him a prophet and given him dominion over our family. He told us that he was a missionary in Montana preaching the gospel to the Native Americans, and that's why he was away so much. He visited us in Colorado twice, sometimes 3 times a year, and stayed for 1 to 2 weeks at a time. My earliest memories of abuse are around 4 to 5 years old, and they'd occur all 12 days for both, or all 3 visits. So I was getting molested and raped about 24 to 36 times a year growing up. The popular months were April and October, and those are still hard months for me. It's interesting that Mary killed herself in October. I think a good way to get a glimpse into my childhood is for me to read a segment of something I wrote in 2016 in response to Donald Trump's pussy grabbing comments. So, warning, graphic, triggering content. This past week has left me feeling suffocated, small, meaningless, voiceless, invisible, afraid, and angry. The last time I felt this amount of panic, confusion, I was 14 years old and being assaulted by my father. You see, this morning I woke up from yet another nightmare where my father, Michael King, was hurting me. This time, he was fondling my 5-year-old labia while I was on his lap watching the nightly news. 3 nights ago, I had another nightmare where he had taken me out of the shower to see how my body was developing, and determining I was a woman, laid me, still soapy from the shower, on the hard, cold, slippery bathroom counter and proceeded to break my hymen with his finger, and after succeeding, left me bleeding, broken, crying on the counter. I was 8. A night before that, it was the time my mother allowed him to rape me in our son's homeroom during broad daylight, accepting the excuse that he had to teach me about boys. I can still remember focusing all of my attention on the Rocky Mountains, standing majestically, protectively in the horizon, but just out of reach. And only 2 nights before that, I dreamt at the time he took me to a hotel room just over the Montana state line and sprayed Lysol into my 13-year-old vagina after raping me, while a woman named Sue, my designated handler, watched silently from the corner. I woke up crying in pain and panic, initially rejecting my husband's attempt to comfort me. It's the last thing I wanted in that moment was to feel someone else's hands on my body. I get to relive these experiences often in my dreams, continually, consistently, and unrelentlessly haunted by the ghost of my father, who killed himself in 2002 while out on bail. He overdosed on his heart medicine in a King Soopers parking lot inside of my brother's red Neon. Right before he killed himself, he tried to kill me, and we learned of his real family that lived in Montana. He was married to a woman named Phyllis. There were no Native Americans, and he had 3 children, Rebecca, John, and Don. I remember as a child Sue refinancing our home so he could help the Indians, but really it was just to pay for Rebecca's wedding. Like I said, leading up to his death were years of abuse. I was his favorite pedestal perfect child, and up until the day my little sister killed herself, it caused pain and jealousy between us. She was never enough for him, and he made sure she knew it. That wound would never be healed between us, and the abuse continued 24 to 36 times a year until I was around 13 when things really started to ramp up. I liken him at this point in time to the protagonist in Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita. Hubert, the protagonist, became obsessed with Lolita, and just like him, my father became obsessed with me as he took me as his child bride when I was 10 years old, even bought me a $2,000 diamond wedding ring and tried to impregnate me with the next Jesus Christ. Her name was going to be Sarah, and it was going to be a girl, he prophesied. But before the down payment could be made on the house, my little sister, the bravest of us, told my aunt and Terry that she had been being abused, and swift action was taken in 2002. He was arrested in Montana and booked into the Gallatin County Detention Center on charges of sexual abuse of a minor, and I was given the choice to go with my mother and sister or to go to foster care, since Sue is not my legal guardian. I was still so terrified of Michael at this point and completely obedient that I obeyed him, and I went to foster care after he called my mother the devil and a woman of the world. I remember crying so hard the first couple of nights in the new home that the memory feels like yesterday. I was 15 at one point in my very first home. I kept cycling between reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis and sobbing uncontrollably in my bed. My foster mother told me at this point that if I didn't stop crying soon, she was going to send me to a juvenile detention center for girls. So from that point on, I took my crying outside. She lived on a farm and hung out with the much more understanding animals. There was a litter of Great Pyrenees puppies just born, and I remember them providing me a lot of comfort. Unfortunately, my dad gave me a cell phone that I hid in the groin of my pants so my foster parents wouldn't find it. He asked where I was, and I would tell him, and Sue and Michael would be waiting for me on my way to school. They'd swift me away into a parking garage or somewhere secluded where he'd rate me in the back of her maroon Trailblazer, and then they'd send me on my way to school, semen still dripping down my leg. This continued from February to June of 2002, and I was transferred between 5 different homes during that time. Eventually, coming to a breaking point, I told Sue and Michael that I couldn't take any more, and they told me that it was okay that I went home. They didn't want Sarah, the deity child, to be born in foster care anyway. It was when I finally went home that I realized Michael had been abusing Mary the entire time too, and I took my cell phone into the street and smashed it with a hammer. According to eyewitnesses, this was the beginning of his demise as he begged Sue to buy him a gun so he could kill me and himself. Sue said no, and so he took my brother's car and overdosed on his heart medicine. I remember getting the news from Jonathan, Sue's son, that he was dead, and I ran into the street so incredibly happy. I had never ever felt freedom like that before in my entire life. So that's all I have for now. Second half coming up. Thanks for watching, guys.